Hey little brother, you were on vacation this week, so while you're away, I wanted to make you something. Some people may be happy to learn that you are considering getting into the Dragon Quest series. I have a bit of experience with it, so let me break down for you where you should start. Now, probably the best thing you can do is get the brand new game on PC or PS4 and call it a day. It's good, it's the most modern, it runs on readily available hardware, and you'll have plenty of people to talk about it with in the coming months. But let's assume there's someone out there in internet land who wants to know a bit more about the game and where they should start. That's what I'm going to attempt to answer here. And a quick disclaimer, I have not played every minute of every game in this video, and while I'm certainly a fan of Dragon Quest, I am not claiming to be an expert. I am also primarily looking at the opening hours of each game to figure out which ones do the best job of getting you started, as well as the overall quality of each game. So if I get something wrong, don't at me, just politely share your comment below so maybe I can learn something. Question number 1. Do you need to play every game in order to understand the others? No! Every game follows its own story, although the first 3 games are somewhat linked. Staying vague because spoilers, but even in that case, the connection isn't so strong that you couldn't play 3 before playing 1 and 2. Question number 2, where can I play these games? Well, all over the place. The most common is actually on mobile. The first 8 games, except for number 7, are all available on iOS and Android, so if you enjoy gaming on a phone or tablet, you're in luck. Otherwise, each game is different, and I'll try to give you the best option here. Question number 3. Should I start at the beginning? Definitely not. There are a couple things to consider when you're thinking of diving into a game series that's been around for over 30 years. Do you want a modern experience or a retro experience? Do you even have access to the right hardware? Dragon Quest is known for being very traditional, which to some people is a turnoff. I think you should try to strike that balance between old school and new school. So let us break the games into 3 groups to try and understand. If you want a more modern experience, you're basically looking at either the newest game, or 8, or 9. 8, I think, is the easiest one to get into today. It looks like a modern game, it feels like a modern game. It was the first Dragon Quest to feature a fully 3D world and voice acting in the West. You dive right into the story and are able to explore the world, enter fights, the whole deal, right from the start. 3DS version is definitely the way to go here. You can get it on mobile. I hear it doesn't run very well, and the 3DS port has extra content over the PS2 version. The story has a fun structure where you're searching the world for a villain, and you basically solve problems for the towns you visit while you're looking for clues. The battle system is traditional turn-based, but it adds an element of strategy with the tension system. Basically, you can skip a turn to be stronger your next turn, and the effect stacks the more turns you skip. You can see how this idea influenced currently popular games like Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler. The 3DS version also removed random encounters, and instead you run into enemies to go into battle with them. 9 on the DS would probably be the next most modern game. However, remember that it's a 3D game on the DS, so by today's standards, the graphics are a little blocky. I think it looks good for the platform. It's also meant to be played multiplayer, so you aren't really playing a strong cast of characters like in other games. Instead, all of your party members are custom created, and you have a ton of customization options. This game's really all about the player building the game that they want to play, which can be a bit overwhelming if you're newer to the series. It's also generally considered to be one of the harder games, so maybe save it for after 8 at least. And it's only available on DS, so if you don't have a DS, you're out of luck. If you want to split the difference between modern and retro, the DS remakes of 4, 5, and 6 are probably the best place to go. You can also pick up all 3 on mobile. I haven't touched those versions though, but I hear good things. Dragon Quest V is probably the easiest of the bunch to get into because it's so influential. You probably played something similar. It introduced a monster taming system, a sort of Pokemon mechanic before Pokemon was a thing. Basically, monsters can ask to join your party after battle. The story is also one of the best in the series and has you following the entire life of the hero. If you like Pokemon-style games, this is definitely an awesome choice, especially because it has a graphical style similar to most Pokemon games. 4 is also a good start with a unique chapter structure for its story, so each chapter stars a different character who later becomes part of the main party. Each character also has a dedicated function, which may be useful to getting your bearings because you don't have to learn a job system. If you've played Octopath Traveler recently and liked that it had multiple character stories, you'll find something to like here. Dragon Quest VI is the least kind of beginners because it features a more complex job system, which can't even unlock fully until a few hours in. And it also requires traversing between different worlds, which can get confusing. This one is great if you want a challenge with a demanding job system, but otherwise, save it for later. I don't know, that kind of stuff just makes me wary about recommending it. So if you want to go super retro, you can check out the original trilogy, and you'll probably want either the mobile versions or the Game Boy Color versions. The NES games are cool as like a historical artifact, or if you're super into retro NES games, but if that were the case, you probably would have already played them. The original game on NES in particular is super archaic by today's standards. You have to menu for everything, including opening doors and using stairs. So of those original 3, the third is probably the best and also the easiest to get into. It was the first game to introduce a job system, but it's very simple compared to later games, so it's easy enough to get started. You get to pick your party members right away, so it feels like you have full access to the systems from the start. The Game Boy Color version also has one of my favorite intros in the entire series. It's the perfect way to play something classic without getting too bogged down in old-fashioned game design. First game is actually not terrible. I don't mean to give it a bad rap, because the Game Boy Color version is fine, and I hear the mobile version is also good. But it's just a much slower game than most of the others, and it's not even that long, so you can really feel the slowness if you aren't ready for it. You don't have a party of any kind, and instead it's just you fighting every monster solo, so that could be a plus if you get overwhelmed by party management. Otherwise, it's kind of like going back to play the original Final Fantasy. Only go for it if you really want to see a piece of gaming history or to complete the series. The second game, meanwhile, has something of a reputation as the game people start and don't finish. It's pretty insane difficulty spikes, and the NES version especially is kind of broken at the end. The Game Boy Color game mostly fixes this, but it's still super grind heavy, and I just feel bad when I give someone a game and then they have to grind a ton. You start with just one character before adding more to your party, so it does take a bit of time before you're able to even fight close to full strength. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of the retro games. Like I said, it's just a matter of considering what is now outdated game design. They've managed the same mechanics in much better ways since, so I think it's just better to play something else first. Now, you may have noticed I did not mention Dragon Quest X or 7 at all. There's a reason for that. 10 is an MMO that was never released in the West, so strike it out, forget about it. You're not going to play it. And 7, I just do not think should be anyone's first Dragon Quest game. It was originally released on the PS1 and feels like the devs realized they suddenly had all this disk space available, and so they decided to cram everything into the game at once. It is insanely long, which is really only good if you're already a fan of Dragon Quest. You really get the sense playing it that it was meant to include as much stuff the fans loved as possible. The opening in particular takes a long time to onboard, and you don't really interact with any of the mechanics for quite a while. There's a really good 3DS version, so don't even bother with the PS1 original, but still, it just doesn't do enough out of the gate to get someone new interested in the series. I could make a case for a version of every other game being suitable to first-timers, except for 7. Save that for when you're already in love with the series. So, to review, you have 3 points of entry into the series. For a modern game, start with 8. For a remade retro game, try 5 or 4. And for the original style, check out 3. Or just check out 11. None of this matters, because 11 is here and it's a good time. So, let's play it and then we can talk about it. Anyway, Broseph, have a good vacation, and we'll play some games soon. Hey there, welcome to the end screen. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you'll catch the next one as soon as it's out. Do like the video if you liked it so I'll know this was actually worth doing. And of course, comment with what you think is the best entry point into the series. Thanks again for watching this video, and we'll talk next time. Have fun out there.